Good morning, Leigh. Good morning, Jody. Thank you for being with the St. Louis Press Club. This is our first online initiative called Hour in the Now. It is October 7th, 2020. Anyway, please introduce yourselves formally. Tell us what you do.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm Leigh Walters. I'm the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Missouri Historical Society.
Jody?
And my name is Jody Sowell. I am Managing Director of Strategic Initiatives, also for the Missouri Historical Society.
Excellent. So let's first talk about today. What is the status of the museum today? Where do we stand with people coming to the museum and your workers, et cetera, et cetera?
Leigh, do you want to start that?
Well, we're open. We are open to the public, but at significantly less capacity. And that is not only an even less capacity than what is allowed by the city in order to protect our visitors and our staff. We, as far as office staff, we are staggered in the office. So if people can do their jobs from home, or they're doing them from home, and we are really, each department is making sure that there are only so many people in an office space at a time. So I think we are busy. We are producing probably just as much, if not more work than before, but we are doing it differently, just like everyone else.
So for the general public, we're open 10 to 5, Wednesday through Sunday. And we do ask people to call for reservations or go to mohistory.org for reservations. But I think Leigh hit on it. It feels like the numbers are just right. It's safe. It feels safe. People can socially distance. Everyone is wearing masks. But it also feels like there are people there getting this history that we always enjoy sharing, and having those meaningful moments. So it's a really nice mix of, it's not so busy that you're feeling stressed out, and we have safety protocols in place. And yet it feels busy enough that, you feel like you're learning about St. Louis history along with other visitors in ways that are really meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And, go ahead.
No, you, please.
Yeah. And for those who aren't comfortable coming in, or that's not an option, we are doing so much more online than we've ever done. We've always done a lot online. We've always shared history online and looked at what we call research visitors, those who visit our website to learn something and see the mission-driven content. But we're doing even more than that. And we have virtual programs as well that have been really successful. And we have a new initiative that we were planned to launch in March anyway, and ended up launching this summer. And we just tweaked it a bit, called CSTL. And those are walking tours of the city, which have been very popular. And we tweaked it so that they're in small groups, 9 people or less, but they're outside and they're going so well.
No, that's good to hear. Let's go to this notion of the History Museum as a place for scholarship. So how did that change in these last 7 months when we've been going through all this? How has that been for the scholars who like to, be hands-on and close and personal with the material and with your experts?
Well, like Leigh said, even when we were completely closed, we have so much available online that people can do a lot of that research from the comfort of their own home. And that's quite frankly how a lot of researchers do their work. But we do have slots available now at our Library and Research Center where you can come in and do that in-person research. We've just really limited the numbers for that because, you're working in a smaller library setting. But what's nice is you can call and tell people what you want to research. And oftentimes they've already pulled everything that you need so that when you get there, you're ready to go. So I think some of our researchers, quite frankly, are probably enjoying it even more now because they probably have even more one-on-one attention. And we tended to give them that kind of attention before, but we can do that even more so now with limited numbers.
Yeah, good to know. So have you been in conversations with your counterparts at some of the cultural institutions in the area with
Always.
regard to dealing with COVID, dealing with these extraordinary circumstances?
Yeah, I think we're always in conversations with our counterparts. I know the communications directors of all the ZMD institutions, we meet monthly and always have to kind of compare notes. And I know that that is true of different departments in the ZMD that also meet with their counterparts. And I know the presidents of all the ZMD institutions meet regularly during the year and always have.
And that was especially important when we were talking about how do we come back, what rules work, and what kind of interactions other institutions were having with visitors. We have been incredibly lucky that I think all of our visitors have just been so happy that we're open again, that we've had no sort of issues that you may have heard about at other museums or people not wanting to wear masks or those types of things. Our visitors have been so genuinely excited to get back into the museum and Soldiers Memorial and the Library and Research Center that it's just been a really touching sort of time for us too, to hear how much we mean to the public.
Might you touch us perhaps with an anecdote or two with regard to that response?
Oh, sure. Well, one of my favorite happened this weekend. I ran into one of my current students. I'm teaching a class at St. Louis University this semester, and she was there with her mother and sister who were visiting from out of town. And they had just come out of our new Beyond the Ballot exhibit about women's suffrage and the history of all the St. Louis women who fought for a voice even before they had the vote. And they were just amazed, and they said, oh, there were so many women that we had never heard their stories before. We were so excited to hear their stories and to hear how St. Louis played a part in suffrage in the United States. And they talked about how inspired they were. We got a great social media comment just the other day along those lines. Leigh, did you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, I was going to say, you're stealing my story, Jody. I mean, we've been getting a lot of great response about the Beyond the Ballot exhibit, which opened in August, and we had planned to open that in April. And it looks at St. Louis's history with suffrage, but someone posted that they were feeling really down about politics and the world, and they were hesitant to go to the exhibit, and they went and they saw all these incredible women who've been fighting for social justice and racial equality and women's equality since the beginning. And then it really made them feel good about the future and where we can go. And that's what I think is so cool about history, and what I hope people understand is that history can really give us hope and guidance for the future. It is so relevant to our daily lives. I hear all the time that people don't like history. And the thing is, I think that people do. They just don't know that it's history that they like. They think of their favorite stories from the past, or their neighborhood history, or something in baseball that happened a long time ago. And they don't realize they love history. They do. And that's just so meaningful to see.
I guess if more people invoked history, maybe we would learn more and be able to progress, So I was very excited about doing the interview with both of you because, one, as communications professionals running an institution, two, it is about history. So let's go back 7 months. perhaps when you were all, you ushered yourselves out of the building, and go back and talk to us about what happened, when did you decide to make your moves, and how did you pivot in light of this tremendous disruption?
Well, I think the official date, Leigh can correct me, I think the official date was March 18th when we closed.
That was the official first full day of closure.
First full day of closure. Leigh mentioned we were about 3 weeks from opening a major exhibit. So to be in that moment where you were really gearing up to open something that you were so excited about sharing with the public and that you had been working on for years, and then to know that you were going to have to shut down, and who knew how long we would have to wait to open that. That was difficult, and that was the hard side for staff. Staff are very excited. I mean, imagine the person who worked on all the content and the design of that exhibit and had been waiting and so excited about the big premiere. I had invited women who were important to me in my life, people I had worked with, people who were great friends, to come in from all over the country for the premiere of that exhibit, because I wanted to share that with them. So to say, oh no, we're not going to be able to do this, that was the hard part. I think what was incredibly inspiring for us, I think for Leigh and me especially, was to see how our staff immediately stepped up and transitioned so much of our work to online so we could continue to share that history with visitors. So we immediately started something we called Uplifting STL, which was a daily social media series with an inspiring story from St. Louis's past. And that started, I think, immediately. I think maybe the day of closure. And within a month, we had produced a 7-minute documentary called St. Louis Strong that said, we've had tough times in the past and we've overcome that. We can take inspiration from how St. Louis has risen to the challenge in the past and apply that to today. I mean, that was work that was done incredibly quickly. And it was incredibly important for the community. We heard from so many people saying, this is what's getting me through this time, reading these inspiring stories, watching these types of videos, being able to continue to come to great programming. And for our staff, it's just a testament to the knowledge and creativity of our staff to be able to transition that quickly.
Yeah, congratulations on that. I loved, to see how quickly you were able to present those to your various audiences. Who are your audiences, by the way? Who are the stakeholders?
Our biggest is St. Louisans. I mean, truly, we are the Missouri Historical Society, Missouri History Museum, but our founders in 1866 said they were saving from oblivion the history of the city and the state, and the city came first. And so it's been predominantly focused on St. Louis history. And I know Jody says it best as the historian and as the non-native St. Louisan who's come to love St. Louis, about what a unique city this is. But I think we all have a shared history. And it's also, we also all have our own unique histories within the city. And we can learn so much from each other and from those stories. And it's so cool to be able to share them with St. Louisans and bring the community together. And for tourists, I mean, you can't know the city you're visiting till you know its past.
Right, and that's what our audience is people who want to be introduced to St. Louis. So sometimes that is the tourist who's coming in, but sometimes that's the person who's lived here all their lives who comes through the Missouri History Museum and says, I never knew that. I never knew this place was so fascinating. That's what we love, is when we also get to introduce St. Louis to people who have lived here all their lives.
Yeah, yeah. For instance, your docents, did you stay in touch with them? Of course, they are always there on the premises. And so what do you do?
Yeah, we did a lot of things internally too to make sure that we were staying connected with volunteers, with staff members. We did weekly playlists about like what music you're listening to and shared that out. We did a March Madness style tournament about picking your favorite St. Louis place. We did a new volunteer newsletter that came out during this time. We worked incredibly hard to make sure that the staff was staying connected, because staff and volunteers, because we knew to do all this great work, we also had to be working as a team.
Yeah. I mean, when I think back of that first transition, how much we accomplished in those first few months, how much we accomplished in the first few weeks, the first week, you know, we weren't used to working virtually. We weren't adept in Microsoft Teams. We didn't even know, like most people didn't even know we had it. Or we were learning how to work together virtually at the same time that we were producing. And that is really remarkable. And I said that to my team, and I think I need to go back and say it again. How did we do that? But we did that. Most of the time you want to have a period of orientation and then you move. There was none of that. It all happened simultaneously, and it was successful. I mean, I think we have some of the most dedicated staff. They care so much about this mission and this community. I mean, I think everything we were seeing internally is we need to do this for the community. We need to do this for St. Louis. We need to keep sharing local stories so we feel to get together as a community while we're apart. I mean, that was really the driver.
Yeah. And Leigh and I have talked a lot about sharing that history, because that's what we do in our roles. But we were also continuing to collect that history. So, you know, we knew that people are living through history right now. And so we started a digital collecting initiative called Stories of the Pandemic, where we asked people to send in photos and send in their stories of how they were coping with this historic time, so that future historians, when they're looking back, will have that material to share how St. Louis worked through this latest challenge. So again, not just sharing, but collecting, and all of that was happening even when we were shut down. And again, that's because that's a testament to this staff. And like Leigh says, how much this staff cares about St. Louis. We have archivists, we have photographers, we have people doing marketing, we have people building things, we have people working in gift shops, but what ties them all together is their love of St. Louis.
Yeah. So you answered several of the questions I was dying to ask about this alignment with also taking history notes for the future. So that's exciting that you've done that and done it so well. Was there much hand holding in the early stages of COVID?
No, you can't hold hands anymore. That's not allowed.
Okay. Spiritual and virtual hand holding.
Right.
I mean, Jody had to listen to my children a lot on a lot of calls. I mean, there was a lot of adjustment to working from home for everybody and figuring that out. And everyone was really, I think, understanding that at the same time that we're all working towards these goals, we're also all going through something, just like the rest of our community. And we all still are. And I think we have really tried to be understanding of that. It's, I look back and I look at now, I just feel like everybody stepped up. One thing we didn't mention was the programming and events team. You know, they shifted within 3 weeks. They were launching virtual events via Zoom. You know, they didn't know how to use Zoom. They didn't know how to use any of these things and what that would look like and what that would entail. And, but they figured it out. And we continue to do those programs weekly, regularly. We've had thousands of households, nearly 5,000 households participate in our virtual programming. So we don't know how many people, because we only see the number of households. But then we recorded that, like you're recording this, and we've shared them all on YouTube, and we've had thousands of more. So we are impacting so many people virtually. And I hope we're impacting the people that would have come before, but I hope we're finding new audiences, and I think we are too.
Well, and that's what I think it is. It hasn't really necessarily been hand-holding. It really has been the sort of support that we're talking about, like different divisions saying, well, I can help with this, or, I know how to do this. Talking about programs, just last month, we moved our incredibly popular Twilight Tuesday program, the big concert series that we have on our front lawn, to completely virtual. We had to have the band in a big auditorium with no audience, which was difficult for them. But it was because our production crew said, yeah, we can figure that out. We can help each other out. And I know there were times where, they were calling the communications team and saying, hey, Facebook Live is not working right now. How do we get this? And so there was just a lot of that. And then, yes, but I think a lot of personal support as well. I mean, people were, doing the virtual happy hours, and I was doing story times with some of the staff's kids, and because it was
with my daughter,
it was a good chance for me to get back the kids that my girls are way too old to read anymore, and so we looked for those opportunities to support one another, and I mean that's what family does, and that's who we are.
Yeah, and I think it was cross-departmental, but also, I think within my department, we run the front end of the web out of communications, and we were short-staffed. I had, the person who usually buys advertising stepping up and stepping in and learning how to run the website to help because we needed more people there. I had our, the public information officer stepping in to do things like that too. We had to have people doing things that were not part of their typical job description to make this all work. And everyone did. And there was no hesitancy. There was no, I feel so lucky that we've got this team that just said, tell me what to do. I will figure,
Yeah,
I'm in.
That's wonderful. That helps certainly to have that cohesiveness. Had you considered some technology, some other platforms before all this hit that maybe you brought up to speed at this time?
Yeah, Leigh, you want to, because we're doing a lot before.
Well, we talked about Zoom for doing programs and sharing them widely. I think one thing that was really good is we were set up well because we were already doing so many things digitally. We had a very strong social media presence, and our social media presence has for a long time been content driven. It has been about sharing history more than it has been directly promotional. That has been a cornerstone of that plan. We also have a search on our website where you can search a good chunk of the collection, as much as we've been able to get digitized so far. And then we have History Happens Here, our digital storytelling space, which already existed. We were publishing 1 to 2 stories a week, and then we upped that to 2 to 3 history stories a week. So that's the original content. So we already have these great platforms. And then we added some new sections to the site on History at Home. We upped our YouTube usage, something we'd wanted to do for a while, but we, hadn't been able to. So now we're sharing a lot more via YouTube. And then we're looking into some new platforms that we might be sharing in the new year that I'm not quite ready to talk about, but as far as some sort of digital exhibit experience type things.
But we couldn't have done everything we talked about if we didn't already have the foundation that Leigh is talking about. So, and that foundation was not just the history and the storytelling, but it was also knowing how to use some of these tools. And one place where we saw a great increase, I think it's continuing, is we do a weekly radio piece for KDHX called Here's History, a little 3-minute radio piece. Well, because they didn't have the same number of concert calendars and those types of things that they normally have, because that was all shut down too, they started playing many more of those. And so, we think about 200,000 people a week hear those. And now they're hearing, I think, 3 or 4 new episodes every week rather than one new episode a week because KDHX needed to fill the airtime. So we've just gotten an amazing amount of history out to people during this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, you know, yeah, it's not just about the new things. As Jody said, we've seen increases in the things we've already done. The History Happens Here, the blog, we've had in the past 7 months, we've had a 25% increase in sessions. So,
wow,
which is huge. That many more people are coming to our site to read history.
Yeah, bravo. That's very good. So in June, of course, this terrible, the murder of George Floyd. So, of course, the world has seen these pictures, of course, and history is presenting new pictures, new thoughts, new actions. So talk to us about, walking the talk, for instance, with regard to dealing with institutional racism, systemic racism. Can you address that, please?
Absolutely. So, that's another example of something where if we hadn't built the foundation, we couldn't do the work that we needed to do. And the work that we needed to do was to give people the historical context for why these issues might be happening. Why do we have these divides? But we have been historically at the Missouri Historical Society doing that work and having those discussions. We were having those discussions before Ferguson. We were a big part of helping this community understand Ferguson. We did an amazing exhibit just a couple of years ago called Number One in Civil Rights that really looked at the civil rights struggle in this community. And so with the murder of George Floyd, we certainly started to share even more on those platforms that Leigh was talking about, history of African-American history in St. Louis. And we did what I think was a truly amazing series called How Did We Get Here? A series of programs that looked exactly at the issues you're talking about, that looked at systemic racism, that looked at policing, that brought many people from many different perspectives together, but to have civil conversations about those very tough subjects. That's when I think we're at our best, when we're like the living room where you can have a calm and civil discussion about very tough subjects. That's not always happening on talk radio or on the internet. Museums should be those places where people can have those discussions, especially history museums. We're in plans. I think I have a meeting tomorrow to talk about an exhibit that we're going to do in the next few years about how segregated St. Louis is. How did it become one of the most segregated cities in the country? That kind of work is really the work that connects the past to the present and shows people that this is the way to help plan a better future, to know our past and how we got here. And so we've continued those efforts, especially this summer, but it's really building on past efforts.
Leigh?
Yeah, I mean, what Jody was saying is definitely building on past efforts, but also knowing we're never done. And no one is ever done. That there is never a moment where you are, oh, we get it. We're totally diverse and equitable and yay, equality, we're done. That is not true of any organization, and it's not true of us. And so we have to continue to look at ourselves and look at what we're sharing with the public. There was, a pivot moment after the death of George Floyd. We had been doing this Uplifting STL series that had been enormously popular. And it just didn't feel like it fit to keep doing it in that moment. And it was a very sudden change, but we changed it immediately. We pivoted immediately away from that because it felt like this was not what the public needed in that moment. And so then because of that foundation, we went back to digitally, we went back to the blog and we looked at stories that we've told on African-American history in the past, We tried to focus predominantly on African-American authors of those stories. And we started going back and resharing those again. And we did that for a month. We were sharing those. And then we worked with some internal authors to write new ones. And so we could be talking about African-American history from Black voices as much as possible. And that was really key. And so we did that for that month leading up to, all while Shakia Gillette, our director of African American History Initiatives, was putting together and planning this amazing How Did We Get Here series that launched in July. So we, people don't think of history as nimble, but I feel like we have really been nimble and really tried to pay attention to what our community needs.
Yeah, nimble was what came to my mind as you were talking. So I'm glad you said that. Wow, we're so fortunate, so fortunate to have you as a wonderful, totally forward thinking, as well as historically minded institution in our community. And having this conversation with both of you, I can't thank you enough on behalf of the St. Louis Press Club. So thank you for your time. Wish you continued success on that continuum of continuous improvement.
Well, thank you very much. We, as much as we love serving the St. Louis community, we really thank the St. Louis community for supporting us. I mean, we would not be able to do the work that we do without the Zoo Museum Tax District, without all the people who become members and who donate. It is, we owe this community a great debt, and the way that we pay that debt is by bringing them history that is meaningful and memorable.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.